our first match, which is bound to be quite a good one here. We've got the Direwolves prepping up to go up against Team One here. Another cross-regional matchup for the first time. Team One, of course, is going to be playing from our Mexico City location, but we do have the Direwolves here inside of Charlotte. So it's bound to be quite an interesting affair when you consider how both of these teams play and how those play styles are going to clash inside of this matchup. Stokes, let's get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with you here. You know, kind of comparable when it comes to their play styles. Pretty aggressive, but obviously both having their own flares. Direwolves, former Electrify, actually out of APAC South. So it's super cool to finally see these guys come out of you know, a region like this, especially with their history, and finally find some success, get to international competition, and try and take it to some of the best in the world. Speaking of which, Team One, if you guys remember, performed extremely well at the Mexico Major, but if you don't follow Siege Esports that closely, you wouldn't have noticed that Team One has actually been gutted. The only remaining member on that squad from the Mexico Major happens to be Lagonis, but he's still got the team here and they're ready to play today.
Yep, they have completely rebuilt this roster, and the previous members of Team One, for those who haven't been following LATAM, have now formed a new squad, I believe by the name of oNe Nation or something, like 00 Nation or something like that. Unfortunately, didn't fare too well inside of Brasileão this season, but we'll have to see how they perform, as they also grouped up with Sexy Cake in the meanwhile too. But talking more about this Team One roster, managing to make their way through, I believe, 3rd inside of Brasileão and 4th inside of the qualifying tournament to make it here to the Major. They have forged themselves forward, but from what I've seen in the online phase, there's still a little bit of work to do. Oftentimes some default style play coming out of this team, really looking to try and get that first kill more than anything in terms of their aggression, and not really extending it beyond that, playing very safe Siege, it seems, especially when you compare them to other Latin American teams, specifically looking at their defensive side, of course, talking about right now.
Absolutely, which is super unique as well, because you and I going through stats yesterday, we noticed that their opening engagements tend to happen around the 2-minute to 2-minute 30 mark, which is a far cry from what we're talking about, which is their pacing and how they like to try and slow things down inevitably towards that, you know, later part of the round. Now, this could be something that's quite useful up against Direwolves. They're pretty bombastic in the way that they like to play as well, and I mean, I honestly think we hit the nail on the head earlier when you and I were talking in the green room. I really feel like this is going to be decided inside of that opening minute and how these engagements go.
And a big part of why that is kind of the factor here, at least for the two of us, is Direwolves' roles. They're very interesting in how they approach it, because no one really seems to be locked into a singular role. It really seems to go on a... Yeah, go ahead.
I would love to give them the stat right now, John. I'm just reinforcing what you're saying, because not only do we have some amazing players here, but they have some amazing names. Let's talk about Harambe from Direwolves. And not only that, but he is the hard breach for Direwolves, John. And I mean, you'll already know this, but just for sake of conversation, the guy is 20-8 plus 12 on entry game. He is a hard breach player doing this. This is what he's doing, which is literally boggles my mind. He's playing Habana and Mute, and he's still just finding that mark time and time again for the squad.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a double-edged sword for the team, because I've talked about this before with other players, and that, okay, if like someone's having a bad day, okay, the fact that someone else can step up to the plate and still be able to fill in the same role as that player and then excel this team forward, that's great. But then what happens when you come upon the day where no one can fulfill that? No one can, you know, pick up the pacing there. So it's going to be very interesting to see this play. Don't be surprised if you see very pivotal fragging operators like the Yana on attack, the Jaeger on defense, shift between like 3 to 4 different players throughout the course of this tournament here as these guys try to evolve their play style. But looking at the highlights here for me, off of the more recent matches these guys have played, ED definitely one to keep an eye on here, especially on the defense. He seems like he's got that playmaking capability to move himself into these unexpected positions and really make a hard impact when the team is in a tough position. Jackie Wu is oftentimes going to be the designated player to be thrown into those fights first, but in more recent matches that I've seen from him in the APAC South Division, it's been a little more hit or miss. So personally, I'm a little worried for the type of impact we'll get out of him there. For me, I'm looking at ED to do a lot of that work on the defensive side.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can try and compare, you know, that squad with Team 1-2 and the way that they kind of play the game. But I will say this, I think that their frag potential is 10 times better than what Direwolves has, mainly because of Maya and Dash. They performed so well at Copa Elite. I'm expecting that to continue here today, even though they are on ping, but we'll have to see. We have the maps coming in now, folks, as we'll get it up on the side of your screen here and see exactly we are going to see here today at Charlotte Major.
Quick reminder, guys, if you are not following along with the most recent regional divisions over the past few months here, you will have missed the fact that obviously our map pool has expanded to 9 maps now, and we've changed some of the maps as well. Coastline is now out of the pool. We've added 2 new ones in. I believe 3 new ones would technically be added in because we also added 2 maps to the pool. So taking a look at it right now, we're coming down to the wire on this one here. Just a few bands left. Clubhouse, Oregon Cafe, Bank, Chalet, Theme Park, and Villa have all been knocked out. timeout, which is going to leave Skyscraper and Border is the map that we will go to, ladies and gentlemen. Team One not really feeling the choice to go over towards Skyscraper. I believe we have seen Direwolves play into it once or twice in the past. However, Border is feeling like a much safer affair, and I would tend to agree when you look at the kind of more wild play styles we get out of both of these teams, especially on either one's attacking side.
Yeah, especially like what we were talking about with opening engagements. I mean, you want opening engagements? Let's go to Border. I mean, it's such a tiny map. They're practically going to be on top of each other as soon as the offensive side gets to the balconies and starts actually trying to work their way into the building. You're going to see a lot of these engagements happen early, very fast. We'll just have to see how it goes. You know, this is going to be one of those ones where it's just really on a knife's edge. I really feel like it's going to be whoever got the others goat that day.
8-7 is very much in the cards for me for this matchup here, just because of the way I've seen these teams play in the online, or rather the regional leagues phase as of a few months ago. So very excited to see how this match comes out either way. And of course for Team One, they don't get to breathe after this match. They've got to get ready to play a second one immediately against one of the best teams that North America has fielded at this event. Oxygen is getting ready to play against them in the very next match.
Which that one's going to be quite a lot of fun. But the good news is we get a little sneak preview of Team One before we have to trot on down to OXG. And as we were just talking about, Border going to be the battleground here, which is going to be extremely entertaining. We were talking about how these opening engagements are going to play a hand into this, but also with just that congestion across the map, it's going to make it to where that offensive map control, they can start to try and play into that top floor when they're going vents and tellers and things along those lines, and able to lock down the stairwells and make it hard to rotate. They could really start to take it away on the offensive side, but again, it's really down to what we see inside of these opening engagements, especially for Team One, as although they don't win the majority of their opening engagements, when they do get it, they have a 75% win, which is pretty dang high.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are still working on getting the Direwolves into the server, I believe, so stick with us here for a few minutes, and while you do wait, we're going to show you a great feature on Lagonis here in terms of how he's been reforming Team One ever since SI.
All it is Lagonis in a 1v2 as Empire surrendered. And do you believe in magic?
Do Major, tá ligado, velho? Mano, a gente tá aqui, mano. Olha esse troféu, cara.
É melhor do mundo! Vamos, Brasil!
Vamos, Brasil!
Vamos!
O Maia também tentando fazer a abertura e é do Brasil!
Ah, Lago Vlog aqui, mano. A gente tá fazendo live agora.
Impressionante! O Levi consegue...
Lagonis, your debut! What a performance from you that round.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Lagonis, who had a rocket year in 2021. They're obviously taking control of the Mexico Major. I think featured pretty much every other major as well with that all-star lineup. Of course, Alamau also being on that. He's now moved on to greener pastures, and it's also spurred a rebuilding of this Team One roster behind Lagonis. With Maya, RHZ, Dots, and Dash now forming up to the other four, they're back again at yet another major, looking to prove themselves once more. We'll have to wait and find out if they can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I really like that video, especially the little, quotations they had there, because one of them really stood out to me, and it's the determination of Lagonis inside of this position, because you gotta feel for this guy, you know? The entire team stripped out from under him. He's got to start from ground zero and try and build something for himself. And within a year, not even a year, he's back at a major event here in May. I mean, he's got to be on Cloud 9 at the moment, even though he's on Team 1.
We do have an update, by the way, from our B-Stream game, so if you're not looking to get spoiled, make sure to mute for the next 30 seconds or so here. I'll give you a second to move your mouse.
Click it. Click the button. It's right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, so on our B-Stream, we had Astralis up against the Wolves. The winner of that matchup was Astralis.
Ooh.
8-7, North America takes another victory for themselves here. So I believe we are 2-1 on the day so far?
Yeah, Dark Zero lost.
Dark Zero 1-1.
Yeah, Dark Zero lost their second game, and done with the spoilers for scores. So
well, that was on this stream. So
yeah.
Assumably you watched that.
That's
if
true. That's true.
If you were hanging out here.
I mean, you never know, man. You could have some, serious LATAM fans in the chat right
Very
now.
true.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
true.
who cares about North America when they're just going to get sent to the airport, John? What does NA stand for? Near airport.
Yeah, I had no idea. Didn't know that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again here to talk more about these squads, Direwolves. Another player we haven't mentioned too yet, I was harping a bit onto ED as well. as Jackie Wu, but another one that really stepped up for me as well in some other games was Souffle. And this is like the thing, right? This is kind of a team where it seems like everybody's got that potential to frag out at least once
it's the
every
names,
few rounds.
man. Like, you're only as good as your name, I swear.
I've noticed they're very snowbally players, too. Like, it might take them a few rounds to get going. They might be silent for that first half or whatever, just have themselves in a bad position because, like we said, the roles are fairly amorphous for this team. So maybe someone's getting put into a position they don't feel totally comfortable in, but then when they switch sides over to the second half, okay, now they get put into a better spot, and they get that confidence back, and they can frag out. We see that a lot, and Souffle was one of those players. I watched a match versus Talon where he was like pretty much dead silent for the first half. Second half comes alive completely, and by the end of the game, had taken over the scoreboard and topped it out entirely.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense for Souffle. He's got the highest KPR on the team right now with a .83, which is pretty stellar if I do say so myself. But past that, I mean, Dire Wolves, I think they're definitely in a position to try and impress here on the international stage. I think that Team 1, even with their current iteration, they're not slouches. So Dire Wolves, if they have a solid performance here, it could bode well for the rest of their major journey.
Yeah, absolutely the case here. Team 1, again, some highlights coming out from them as well. We've seen a lot of these players trying to, obviously, again, with Team 1, the roles are a little bit more kind of locked in, it seems here. RHZ being one of the players. Border, we're going to see a lot of probably security play from either him or Dash, I believe, or Dots is another player as well that tends to be put into those spots from time to time. So expect them to be active inside of that first minute or two. Unfortunately, probably dead fairly often inside of that minute or two as well. Just comes with the territory of that role. And we'll see how else the kind of anchors of the team will play out. That's oftentimes how these border rounds devolve. You've got that first 2-minute fight between those 1 or 2 extensions, and then they'll slowly fall back, and we have them try to breach the site with the remaining minute or so. It's looking like we're getting the Dire Wolves into the server now, folks. Once again, apologies for this delay of game, but I believe we're just a few moments away from getting things started.
Literal seconds here as we both just witnessed Dire Wolves' entire roster come into the server. So, as John was saying, moments away from actually getting into the action where you guys don't have to listen to us continually drone on about both of these squads. We'll have something of more substance to talk about. The good news is for at least Dire Wolves at the current moment, they've only played Border once inside of recent history, but they do have a dub on it. That's a big thing going into this, so hopefully they can find some success once again. Or actually, apologies, that was indeed a Team 1, which I think you have the game up for.
Yeah, I do, exactly. They managed to take a 100% win rate on that one as well. 7-3 versus INTZ, and that was played late March was when they managed to play that one. So it has been some time. It's been a little over a month since they've played it. Assumably, of course, they are at the major. They have been running it in scrims, so they're definitely not going to be like out of rehearsal for it entirely, and they felt comfortable to pick into this one, of course. So expect, obviously, a fairly well-rehearsed play. As far as Dire Wolves is concerned here, once again, I'm just going to pull this up for us in a minute, but they have only that one match result on it as well. We're going to have to see how much that experience is going to translate here. Like we said, both of these teams have a fairly chaotic playstyle. We've gone to a chaotic map. They both have fairly limited experience on it, at least in terms of officials. So I'm actually fairly interested to see what ends up coming out of this matchup because it could be a little bit messy inside of the gunfight just because of both teams' unfamiliarity with playing this map and officials. Either way, I think it is going to be fun. And now we can, I believe, just try to see if you've got the stats there for that map.
I'm trying my
best.
He's
working on it? Okay. He's trying to pull up the Dire Wolves game.
Hey, we got it! Yay!
There we go.
It was a 7-4 over Wild Card Gaming,
Okay,
actually,
so almost the
things.
same exact thing as the INTZ game. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, it does look like we are finally ready. We're heading into the game, so let's get into it here. The first match of the tournament for both of these teams. Will it be the Dire Wolves giving APAC a win, or will Team 1 take it home for the Latin American region? Let's find out as the bands are going live now.
It starts now with the offense as Team 1 will be starting on the defense. Got to get rid of a few of these operators before we can get down to business. First band is going to be Thermite, of all things. Yeah, very, very interesting, I would say, especially for an initial ban here on Border. You usually expect something like a Thatcher just to slow things down on the offensive side, especially for Team 1's position. But maybe, just maybe, thinking a little bit ahead on this, don't want to have to deal with potentially the smokes or the massive hole that we all know too well from Thermite.
Yeah, especially inside of the lockers hold here. I think it's going to complicate things in terms of trying to open up that main wall that a lot of teams will try to go for access on the west balcony. Thatcher's going to follow that one up. That one's a pretty straightforward ban. We've seen him stick at the top of the attacker ban pool for years now. So it's going to remain the case due to his universal utility that is constantly exercised. Cade, kind of a response to the Thatcher ban there. Without Thatcher in play, it's very hard to deal with Cade, so you don't want to kind of self-handicap yourself. You need to knock that one out as well. So quick correspondence there, which leaves the final ban from Team 1. They're going to take out oNe, removing some of that utility mitigation on a fairly claustrophobic map like this. You do want to knock some of that out, so you have a better chance of landing those nades, as we are still very much in that very grenade-heavy meta right now.
Yeah, very grenade-heavy meta, as well as getting oNe off the board makes it to where Capitao is stronger as well, as there's no longer a counter that exists. But you know, in the common day, we honestly don't see Capitao all that often. He's definitely played, but not to a percentage where, you know, it's something to write home about. So as of now, folks, we're finally into the game here. We can say that. Major time, baby. We're here in Charlotte. Some exciting stuff between Direwolves and Team 1 on the docket. And for Direwolves, it looks like we want to start with the action earlier. We're going to have an OSA out initially, but just to remind you guys, if you haven't been watching Siege eSports for a little while, we have attacker repick now. Now, I know you might be questioning what that is, but it's like 6-pick, but for everybody on the offensive team. And I know, it's not as crazy as you really think it is initially. Let me tell you, it makes it to where the offensive side is so much fun to watch. There's so much more adaptation, and hopefully we see that out of Direwolves here today.
All right, we'll be checking that out in just a moment. It's looking like we are actually going to rehost, folks, so stick with us here for just a second, as unfortunately one of the teams got a bug, it looks like. So we'll have to redo this real quickly, and then we will be hopping right back into the game as soon as we resolve that. We already landed client, so it should be a pretty quick rehost, guys. Just stick with us here for about 2 to 3 minutes while we bring things back together. Fairly straightforward start, though, from our defenders. No surprises in terms of the site pick. Board is a pretty open book, actually, right now when it comes to kind of where you want to rotate towards. It seems teams have kind of their own choice. It doesn't really seem like there's any preferred site or that there's like really any heavily leaning defender-sided one. I think the results are quite mixed right now, so you can pretty much go wherever you want.
Yeah, I'd say the only site that anybody really avoids is customs.
Yeah,
it's like the least played one out of all of them, which, yeah, it does make sense.
It's like most maps have that, like one site that just doesn't get played, though, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some in the past that have been very strong on a multitude of sites. One in the current pool would be Villa. Oregon is also one that we see every single site utilize a decent amount of the time, but I would say more so in Villa. People have gotten used to playing around Living Room and have been quite capable in recent history at that site.
To some extent, like Clubhouse and other regions, too. I know NA doesn't play like Bar at all, but I mean, most of the other regions bring it up every once in a while, at least.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, once in a blue moon or a blood moon, if you looked outside last night.
Those darn clouds.
Yeah, that was hot off the presses right there.
Couldn't see anything last night.
Yeah, no, oh man. A little story time for you guys. John and I tried to catch the blood moon last night in Charlotte, North Carolina. And would you like to pick it up, John? Do you want to tell him?
Just a tiny little circle of clouds specifically centered over Charlotte. So,
yep.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I'm really into like space stuff. So
yeah, he takes some really, really cool photos. So you guys should definitely go follow him on Twitter and support him in that endeavor. But past that, we're going to be hopefully getting back in here soon enough so that we can take some mental photos of what the heck this site setup looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Here it is going to be, like we said again. Now, and those of you that actually saw it in Game 2, you will have noticed that it is a lockers play. So again, shouldn't really be any massive surprises there. Defensive lineup looked pretty straightforward for what I was able to grasp real quick too. So.
Go hop in your plat game. It's going to look pretty similar.
Yeah,
you're going to reinforce 90. You're going to slap up some walls on the box wall. You're going to make sure that more than likely triples reinforce. Some teams don't do that for Office. Some do. It just depends on really what you're looking for. That's the beauty of Rainbow Six. If like you get you and your friends together, it's kind of like the spice of life. All right, I kind of want to do this. I want to try that. And they'll end up getting it figured out. So we'll have to see exactly what Team 1 can potentially muster here. But we got Larch on it. You can see him back there working with the team right now to make sure that everything is right as rain. Before we jump back in here, we are just waiting on this round to start, but we just want to confirm that there is going to be no more tech issues before we get it back onto your guys' screens. So just give us a moment here, and we'll be back with you in just a couple of seconds.
Yep, absolutely the case here. You get a better view of what the operator lineups are going to be looking like here and there. There's a little bit more variety coming out of Team 1. Seems like they want to play this fairly mobily, just looking at the operators, and you guys will actually probably see this in just a moment, but we'll keep talking about it anyway. The main thing to note right here is going to be Maya playing on the Oryx, so once again, wants to be having that capability to rotate, of course, not only through the downstairs parts of the map, but be able to jump up through the hatches, probably especially here inside of CCTV, a late rotate through that if there's going to be a bad amount of Overwatch from Direwolves in this 90 hallway, could give him a massive rotate back into the site to really punish the push from Direwolves if they try to use the CCTV side and don't just go directly in from the wall over on the west side of the map.
I like the general idea that Team 1 has right now for this setup, especially the operator lineup here. A little bit of denial to try and hold up the wall just for the time being, but as soon as that opens, you have some very solid solid plant denial, as well as some rotations that you can pull off, especially some that are only accustomed to Oryx, where well, you can actually go up through Customs Hatch into CCTV and potentially get a good flank off. There's going to be a lot of different avenues that Direwolves have to worry about once they start getting into this building.
All right, so here we go. Direwolves are spawned out for the first time of this tournament, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what they can do against the Latin American team. And once again, just as a reminder, because I know we have the players off site, I do want to remind people of this every game. We do have something like this going on. So Direwolves are here on location. Team 1 is playing for the Mexico City location. So just making sure everybody's fully aware of that. We'll be getting into it here, focusing up on what exactly Team 1's going to try to throw out against the Direwolves here. Like we said, they definitely want to play this mobily and apparently aggressively as well. Thankfully, just going to be the Gemini hopping in right there, so Dots will have an easy time dealing with that. He knows there's players nearby, though, so he's justified his position out here on the balcony. Just needs to find that lineup against Jackie Wu or the other repelled player from Direwolves in the area.
And if the stats are true, then there's about to be a gunfight here in less than 10 seconds. Jackie Wu right on the other end of this setup from Dots. Not too much happening here, though, so we'll try and transition over to the top of East and actually find some space. Dash should be able to back up here, but not before Jackie Wu takes down Dots.
Jackie Wu, a great start to the tournament for him here, picking up the opening kill. I'm going to see how they can move it further, but Dots as well, or Dash rather, with the lineup here. He's able to find the cross against Harambe, picking up a quick trade and keeping this even here at a 4v4. Direwolves will need to find their advantage elsewhere, but as you can see, starting to gain some map control for themselves as they creep in towards East Main, but they still need to deal with this deployable over on the hallway, and I believe the cone, they're going to get eaten up or just an outright miss, unfortunately.
Well, actually, he didn't bring it. He has a pistol.
Oh.
That's why I was like, oh no.
I saw the silhouette for that split second. I thought it looked weird, but he shot it, so I thought it went out. But no, just a tiny little bullet, not going to take anything out. And now Team 1 is going to be the next squad to strike here as Lagonis is able to knock out ED and remove the sledge from play.
Well, now for Direwolves, it's going to be a slow last minute and 10 here as they're still stuck to the top of East. They were able to get rid of that shield, but I believe it took a frag grenade from Jackie Wu in order to accomplish that. Still have some solid intel game, though. 6 drones up, still one in the pocket that they could potentially use as well, but actually not on the remaining players, so not going to matter all that much. Lagonis trying to juggle back and forth on concrete window here, just trying to deal with the AC player, but it's going to be a beautiful move here from Direwolves. They'll sneak back in on the back side here of Archives and be able to at least pick up one, equalizing, but the mirror window is going to work magically for Dash. He's going to take down Jackie Wu. Can he take down the second player? Peek and falls inside of Radio, and Team 1 have their very first round.
Team 1 giving seemingly zero respect to the Direwolves roster, with maybe the one exception being the East Main entry over on the stairwell, as we see them just shut down the members of the Direwolves at pretty much every single attempt to hop into a window, run through a door. They were there ready to take the fight and ready to win it in most circumstances too, as you're seeing on our replays now.
Yeah, and honestly, that's going to be pretty punishing for Direwolves overall, especially because they kind of showed their hand at the last moment. They're sneaking into the back of Archives, picking up that big 2K, but Team 1 still rally back and pick up the round. It's going to make it super hard because Team 1's going to be looking for those throughout the rest of this defensive half when it starts to get to those lull moments. They're going to start looking at other facets of the site and seeing if somebody's trying to creep around and try and get in behind them. And on a map like Border, that's extremely easy to accomplish, especially when you have somebody with a cardiac sensor along for the ride. Lagonis, we picking up the Pulse, and that's going to be amazing intel here on this map.
Best part about Pulse, of course, on this specific site too, is you've got the security of the bathrooms to kind of hide out in. Is obviously we're going to be seeing the Direwolves try to take that upstairs control over inside of Archives area. So you're going to see him be able to hide back there with pretty much no risk to his own life, and he can just camp on that heartbeat sensor if he's trying to gather intel about what's above him and at least over in the next room over as well, if he wants to maybe check out like ventilation or something like that. We'll have to put in a bit more effort to see what's going on outside of the building and whatnot, but shouldn't be too much of a concern as his teammates can certainly handle that. Either way, Direwolves are out. The setup phase is complete, and it's time to see what our APAC representation can do once again here.
I'm loving these defensive standpoints that Team 1 are making around the map. You know, whether it be around a mirror window or just some extra utility to be able to hold things down with like these castle barricades or some laser gates. It just makes it a lot easier for Team 1 to actually operate around the full breadth of the map and make it to where Direwolves can't immediately get map control in the way that they want to. And again, that goes back to just the size of Border. It makes it a little bit easier, but also with this utility added to it, it makes things quite difficult, especially for like the top east door right now. You have to get rid of the laser gate as well as the castle barricade. That's already either 2 frag grenades or 2 breaching charges. Like, there's so many different things you have to use to try and soak those things up. So Team 1 with yet another fantastic defensive setup.
Dash, meanwhile, just clearing out any drone presence to make sure that he's not going to be spotted here, or more than likely be priming up to make a move at some point over the next minute or so. As Stoke said, generally speaking, we see both of these teams take their initial fights on attack right around that 2-minute mark, but at the moment, Direwolves have not really been able to isolate out any abusable positions here from Team 1 right now. They're playing a very safe game at this point, except for their roam team, so it's going to take some time for Direwolves to be able to really find an opening for themselves. As they're only clearing out the second floor, and as you can see, they're getting much closer to this kill potential now as they start to creep up on Archives. You've got 2 members of Team 1 currently holding the line.
Yeah, and even for the roam game, I mean, Team 1's unit that's on the top floor is playing this very close to the chest. They're right next to the hatch to be able to drop down. Really what they're looking for is that initial pick and then just drop off. They don't want to try and deal with too much else. So for Souffle, though, he'll deal with the castle barricade on top east. We're about halfway through the round now as things have slowed down to a halt. Direwolves not able to make too much progress, but finally starting to get something done over here on Fountain. Maya going to take a little bit of damage, but not enough to call back about just yet until this moment pops up. Peekin with 2. This will take down RHZ and Maya.
Got with a nice shot there, knocking out 2 members, Maya as well as RHZ, both going down here. Good amount of utility going to go with that too, but thankfully it's all deployed in the early round, so at most you're going to be losing like the Nitro cell off of RHZ for late round play. Thankfully, Lagonis still has one in check, but he will have to self-throw it. Dash with some great timing though. Waltzes up onto ED just when he was going for his retreat. They've got a great read onto him right now, but Souffle as well has the response. Is not going to let Team 1 get back into this round so easily. Now looking for the outright exchange, of course, here, and making sure that no one else is roaming down below. It's Direwolves in control of the area around the site, giving them the capability to go for the plan and pinching out at least one of the remaining members of Team 1. Everything falls to Lagonis here. He's going to start with a nice refry, but he's got 3 more to go, and unfortunately doesn't really have great positioning to play from here. Anytime he peeks, he's going to have bullets coming his way, and it's just too much to bear here as Pecan knocks him down.
I believe there's a quad for Pecan on that round as well, which fantastic from him, especially for the ace. I mean, fantastic gun, but a lot of times you tend to see aces play a little bit safer, but we've started to see a lot of frag potential come out of these guys trying to main this operator for their squad. So some success found here for Direwolves after a very painstakingly long round. Really nothing happening. Direwolves really trying to get a read as to what the situation was, and I'd say they did a pretty bang-up job, especially given the circumstances of Lagonis being on pulse. It just really seemed like they got 0 traction out of that, especially with Direwolves and their entry upstairs. If we actually have Lagonis properly positioned down low and he's able to get a solid read on Direwolves' entry, that round could go completely the other way. Big Nitro cell kill on the Habana, and then slowly but surely Direwolves lose their foothold on that top floor.
Well, by the way, we are into a bit of a teeter-totter now between both of these teams, 1 for each. Now, of course, we return to this hold here for our friends on Team 1 as they're going to go for the ventilation site for this one. Obviously a bit more room to play with, not going to be as claustrophobic of a hold, and a little bit, slightly less emphasis, I should say, on the upstairs hold coming into this round. But it's going to be a bit more of an extended play upstairs too, just because you need to control more and more real estate up here to try and prevent Direwolves from taking what they need to truly assault the site. So let's see here, as it's going to be 2 players extended into the lockers area once again. The rest of the team will be spreading out quite a bit, actually, among the downstairs portion of the map, as they do want to play around this and try to waste the time away, as it's a large part of how they're able to take control of the first round, removing the options from Direwolves by taking the fight directly to them.
Yes, indeed. And now something has to give. Somebody has to claim this lead here. Maybe Team 1 once again, or will Direwolves be able to claim it here for the very first time? We're going to have Lagonis back on the pulse, feeling like they can still potentially get something done. They have shifted the site over towards vents instead of tellers, so it should make it a little bit easier to play fully around the site, as they'll have access to bathroom, and it won't be nearly as risky as when they have the chassis in there. Won't have nearly as many Direwolves members, more than likely staring in on their location. Some drones out here for EDs. He's trying to find any member he potentially can. I don't know if the cardiac sensor can actually get him through the wall here, but that would be fantastic for this situation. Jonas could potentially get that. I should be able to pick up one ED in a very fast move, but he's been caught off guard here. And this is what you were talking about earlier, John. Direwolves with this just pure unadulterated aggression. It's just walk in, solo play, lose a life, and now they're down 2 bodies.
You have to respect the confidence, but to some extent you have to realize when that confidence is, it's kind of putting your team at a bit of a deficit here, as we just saw with that push. Just nothing coming out of it for the Direwolves. And now they're down by 2 with no real respectable positioning to play off of either. Yeah, they've got CCTV, but the site's on the other side of the map still. So,
and downstairs.
Yeah, and downstairs. So there's like, okay, like, Team 1 doesn't really care that they've given up CCTV right now. That's not a major issue for them. If they start losing this tellers area, okay, maybe things get a little bit more claustrophobia because now the back of their psyche get pinched if they have enough hard breach, but that's going to be a little bit... Actually, no, it shouldn't be too much of an issue here, thankfully, for the Direwolves, as they do still have 2 out of 3 of hard breach still rolling here on the roster.
Yeah, they do indeed still have a couple of hard breach options, but it's all onto Harambe. They've gotten rid of all of the Soma charges on A, so that's going to overly complicate things when it comes to getting that wall, as everyone will surely know in the site that that wall is about to explode. Now here for Soufflé, trying to get himself inside of stock. A missed shot there from Maya, but potentially can clean it up. Harambe going to throw in yet another stun as Soufflé tries to add to the pile, but it's going to be Harambe to win it out as they try and pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Nice overwhelming play there, but the problem is Lagona is still exercising so much control here. He shifted himself into the Teller's room here. He's going to be able to, or rather not Teller's, excuse me, Customs room. He's going to be able to move in and take that one out. Dots the next frag. However, Pecan, the last player alive for Direwolves, is only able to negotiate one more before going down. It's another round for our defensive side here as they are able to pick it up, and unfortunately Direwolves throwing just a little bit too much aggression at Team 1, giving them what they needed to shut that down fairly early on in the round, as they were kind of gifted a early 5v3 or just able to trade their way from that point forward.
And I think that's the best way to put it. They were practically gifted that round. You know, Direwolves with a little bit too much sauce early on and just not enough oomph to back it up. There's nobody else inside of the tri-state area practically to be able to help these members. And that's where we're going to see the tactical timeout here. It feels like Direwolves are starting to all play their own kind of game and really not work together as a team. And from what we've seen from these setups from Team 1, you guys really need each other. You are going to have to clear out these setups, especially with how much mirror play we're seeing from Team 1. I mean, they are holding down some extremely important facets of this map. Even inside of the last round, I mean, how long did we have Team 1 upstairs inside of Fountain just playing around that mirror window? It was practically the entire time.
Past that quarter mark on the matchup now here as we enter round 4. Direwolves are going to use this as an opportunity to take a timeout as things are not really going swimmingly, especially inside of the early round here. They're either struggling to find that opening kill and losing a lot of their time bank as a result of that, or, as we saw in the last round, just outright giving over that first kill, if not the second one as well, to their opponents here, putting them in a bad position right from the very beginning of the round. Let's see if they're going to try to make up for it, as the pause has already expired, and we are back in game now, with Team 1 in the lead at 2-1.
We'll see what the adjustments are going to be. Won't be too harsh on things just yet, but we are going to have some attacker repicks coming in, and one that's pretty creative that we don't get to see too often. ED will be bringing in Kali, which, if you guys didn't know, she has a bolt-action sniper rifle. In fact, the only one inside of Rainbow Six Siege. Can one-shot down, but also she's got a Lancer on the bottom of that. It's like a little grenade launcher type thing, and it actually drills through reinforced walls and causes an explosion on the other side. It can get rid of utility and things along those lines to try and
closest thing to a Thatcher.
Yeah, it's like Thatcher light. The big annoyance with Kali is that actually her Lancer blows up on both sides, so you can't preemptively set hard breach. Like, for instance, if Thermite was in this game and you set an exothermic on the wall and then the Lancer goes in, it's going to get rid of your exothermic charge. So it just makes it to where you really have to be solid on your timing, because as soon as you forget that fact, then you might be losing some very pivotal utility.
Absolutely case. So we'll see how Direwolves are able to utilize that. Certainly going to want to try and get access. I imagine this was brought to breach West Main, but they also have the OSA too to try and force their hand. It looks like inside of the south doorway here. Moving up. It looks like it was a Nitro maybe blown up a bit close, as you can see that going through the floor. Either way, though, the Nitro's a miss, obviously, but Dash will still be able to find the opener. Once again, Jackie Wu going down here. We talked about this in the early game, that he was going to be the player to take some of these early fights, but man, on the Finca as well, this is a huge loss within the first minute of the round. And again, that entry coefficient here for Jackie not looking great at 1 and 3 right now.
All that extra health from Jackie's Adrenal Surge already gone, and Dash trying to remove more heads of the Direwolves roster. Dots has it on the back end, no Claymore. This is a freebie if I've ever seen one. He'll get away with it. Nobody on the far end. Soufflé goes down, and Direwolves worse for wear at the moment.
Yeah, once again, 5v3, same exact circumstance as the previous round. The only difference being it's Team 1 that kind of forced it on them this time instead of the other way around here. So I like that change of pace either way from Team 1, giving a bit more respect in the previous round, but then immediately just yoinking it right away and getting hyper-aggressive on them again in the fourth. Great kind of changing of pace, variety of pace is probably the more appropriate word to use here from Team 1. It's really going to keep their opponents guessing and potentially just disallow them to really make any sort of solid guess as to how to play, at minimum, the early round.
Exactly. I mean, Harambe's going to go down here. He's dusted. Direwolves now down to a 2 versus 5, and I'm loving this play style from Team 1. guys more than likely recognized it at home, but they're being very aggressive to the outside of the building while it's also maintaining a very strong defensive standpoint around the site. And that's where Mira helps us, especially with like these mute jammers or Warden with RHZ playing on site. Whole reason RHZ only has 2 kills is because these opening engagements have been so easy for Team 1. They're just going to continue to take them. They're literally chasing ED outside. He wins the initial fight with the pocket F2, but he's got a long road ahead of him.
Yeah, at this point, just stat padding for ED, so another kind of pseudo timeout because this round has unfortunately fallen by the wayside, so they're going to use this remaining 40 seconds. Wouldn't be surprised if ED just sprints around the building for the remaining 30 seconds here to try and just basically wait this one out, allowing the IGL for Direwolves to give a little bit more intel in terms of what may be going on here, what they need to do to try and get themselves back on the board. Because this round is pretty much over, unfortunately, folks. No hope at all for the Direwolves here. It is going to be a 3-1 lead for Team 1 as they continue to excel inside of this first half.
Oh man, ED won't go for the re-swing, but Dash will pick him up, and Team 1 continue their trot towards victory here on the defensive end, and it's just looking stellar. I mean, I don't really think there's too much more to tell the tale of this. It's all about the early aggression here for Team 1, and if that's not going to work out, they'll slowly bring themselves back to site as they are focused on controlling this clock. I'm really, really loving this playstyle at the current moment because for Direwolves, they're stuck to the outside of the building. They continue to just try and take these engagements and lose them time and time again, and as long as they're going to continue doing that, Team 1 don't have to make a move at all. They can play this exact same setups, exact same play style, and it's going to more than likely give them a victory.
And so with no need to change that, as Stokes was mentioning, we are going to see pretty much the very same lineup roll itself in once again here. They just keep trying to rack up more and more rounds here to close out the first half.
It might be even more roams, my friend. Even more roams. There's no mirror inside of this
That's true, they have
now.
mirror for this one.
Yeah, they doubled down. They're like, all right, well, if we can just kill you, we'll kill you twice.
I think they let Maya out of the box again here in the Valve. So.
Maya's off the MPX, guys. You better watch out. 0-2-3 at the current moment, but more than likely excited to get down and dirty here inside of round 5 because Dash has just been having too much fun. Currently 8-1.
Absolutely the case here. Just so much freedom of movement for Team 1 at the moment here, which explains why they're getting so aggressive, just because Direwolves are not really able to negotiate for early map control themselves and are constantly watching out for these aggressive plays, which is really just opening up more and more of them, it seems, for Team 1 here. Let's see what they'll do once again. Both sides here, as we need to see Direwolves change up the pace as well. If they can get hyper-aggressive here, maybe they can get in the face of the Team 1, but they need to find a way to do that where they don't run directly into the setup and hand over the first, if not second kill.
Direwolves, they made it to Charlotte, but they're having trouble crossing this border. That's the biggest thing right now. They're trying to get inside, John, but every single engagement has just gone south. I don't see the big change for them just yet here, but hopefully it starts with Jackie Wu. We were expecting a lot more out of him inside of this matchup, as it really has only been the Pekin show. And in fact, like you were saying, you might see some things thrown around a lot, and that's already happened. We got the Yana now on Pekin, and Harambe has the ace instead.
That's what we were talking about in the pregame once again, about how Direwolves don't necessarily lock the roles into any particular player here. They tend to shift pretty much, you know, all over the place. We see 3-4 different players taking on like the Yana role throughout a few matches here, so it goes all around. Peacon's got it right now, but what a shot from Dash. Just knocking out Jackie Wu. He's not even like the first front player this time. It was Peacon moving in there, but somehow Jackie Wu gets the aggro once again, and he goes down. Harambe's upstairs though, and he's able to negotiate a trade as he's able to take down Dots. That removes the castle from play. We've got more resistance here still, so Harambe's not out of the hot seat just yet.
How long can Team 1 hold on to this top floor? RHZ seems prepped and ready, has the smokes and the kill on Harambe. That's the case down outside, and now Direwolves have to try and bring it on back. And that case across, especially with Das here inside of CCTV, it's still going to make things pretty complicated. They have to get all the way over to East Stairs, try and get on that balcony. Souffle is going to try and go for a counter angle here, but this is more than likely going to be heard, as that's a pretty loud breaching charge. Peacon's going to go down, and still no one is paying attention to these balcony doors, and Maya potentially with a frag here in a couple of seconds. It's a 1v2 makeshift inside of this situation here. Souffle can't exactly find the frag, but eventually the LMG will tag up his arm and he'll go down because of his low HP.
Yeah, there's so much pre-fire coming out there from Souffle. He's panic spraying to an extent, but manages to get himself one inside of Mini there. But the responses, man, from Dash right now. He's up to the triple on this round. 11-1, by the way, at the moment inside of the game here. He's going to try to make it 12 in a second, and he'll do it. 4 kills from Dash in this round, and pretty much all of them as he's just lone holding inside of CCTV the entire time.
He's practically just running around and taking every gunfight he potentially can. And this is the thing that's very frustrating for the Dire Wolves fans at home. If they come together as a team and find out where these lone wolves are, then they have a much better chance of being able to lock down that part of the map and get that entry frag that they're looking for so badly. But instead, they're giving Team 1 exactly what they want. All right, let's take some disjointed 1v1s. Hopefully we win them, and if we don't, we might just try and get aggressive somewhere else and try and get our kills back. But it just doesn't work. Team 1's play style into this play style is just too strong. They deal with this kind of thing all the time in their region. Dire Wolves isn't going to throw some, weird thing at them in the aggressive vein that's going to throw them off their game.
The question as well here is, like, where is the intel game right now from Dire Wolves to spot these players out, to lock them down? You've got like 3 to 4 players trying to hunt down Dash, but where's the drone to flush him out, to even just figure out where he's positioned at, so you can at least have an idea of where to put your crosshair to try and pre-fire when he peaks? We're not even seeing that seemingly from the Dire Wolves right now. I'm going to try and pay closer attention to it here, just make sure I'm not talking without facts behind it, but still, it doesn't really seem like there's much of it at the moment from the Dire Wolves.
I feel like you're absolutely right, and also the big thing is that these opening engagements really play into that, because you're losing drones every single time somebody dies. And then past that, also, if you guys didn't know, Dire Wolves, one of the most played operators, Dokkaebi. That'd be fantastic in this situation. The only denial that they brought for Doke the entire time was mute, and he's used for the mirror windows. So any single time that you try and get those early engagements and you just call with Doke, you're going to know, for the most part, where people are around, like CCTV, Top East, these hotspot areas that Dire Wolves are trying to go for, but they haven't made the switch over. Instead, they've just continued to go back to gunpowder, and John, it's not going to work out again. Souffle, he goes for the IQ, trying to counter out the Pulse as well as the Valkyrie, but he's already off the board.
Just go back to the drone point. Never saw one. Never saw a silhouette of one trying to move through that whatsoever. Just no idea. Just no intel, it seems, from the Dire Wolves right now. Dot's pretty much the same thing. There was a drone kind of lurking around the balcony area, so maybe they were able to...
killed that IQ outside, John. He died outside of Passport right there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that means...
I thought that was upstairs.
Yeah. Was it Dots who got the kill?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Wow, incredible.
Well, either way, Team 1 just exercising full control of the early round right now, not giving Dire Wolves an inch to play into. A little foot or two here to get themselves around. Was able to negotiate that one still, but it's not going to be much to play off of here. If we end up at a 5-1 half in favor of Team 1, they will have the ultimate advantage here. Team 1 seems to be reading into the potential movements from the Dire Wolves too here. They're going to be moving around that deployable shield, I think bracing it rather, against the push from Archive's side instead, as it looks like that's where Dire Wolves are trying to prime most of their aggression for this take.
Pretty solid side, especially with Ace along for the ride. They'll be able to get control of quite a few of these walls around the area. The big issue right now, though, is what do they do about the Mira setup inside of Fountain? They still have Jackie Wu with frags as well as ED, so they actually do have the potential to clear this out pretty handedly, but it's just how they use the remaining moments of this timer, because as we've seen, it usually comes down to a quick drone or two, somebody else will die, and then you are down to a 2v whatever situation, and it's usually Team 1 coming out on top. And once again, such solid positioning here from Team 1, these rat corners that Dire Wolves are not looking into. Jackie Wu with a quick swing, and he's literally on his clone. And now, more than likely, dead in a couple of moments. No. Oh, the trigger discipline. You don't get these very often in Siege, and he'll be able to win it out. Just missing the head by a couple of moments there. But that might be the dagger to end it here for round 6.
Yeah, how many times have we said this? A 5v3 in the favor of Team 1 yet again here, as they've set themselves up. Obviously, it took a bit longer to get to that point at least, but it's still the circumstances that have been put before the Dire Wolves here. 3 players have to make up. At least 2 of them need to get a second kill on this entry in order to make up the difference to get themselves into the site. And Team 1, I mean, they don't even have everyone in the site. They still have top-down angles against this take. This is so rough for the Dire Wolves here as they walk their way in. We are going to see at least one trade come in from Pecan, but aside from that, no, a second one for Pecan as he's holding on here. Able to take out, he's got that second kill. Now it's ED that needs to step up here. Where's the interaction from him? Where's that sledge play going to come into the fold as they've lost case control here? oNe is able to go 1 for 1, but again, the numbers come into play here as Team 1 still have 2 players ready to immediately exchange out that last frag and pick up the 5th and final round of the half.
I mean, Team 1 are just making it nigh impossible for Dire Wolves. Every single time they get an advantage, they take it all the way to the house. Some fantastic stuff here on the defensive end. And honestly, you got to feel for Dire Wolves at the current moment, because what do you do as of right now? Because more than likely, the offensive side for Team 1 is going to look quite similar. They were extremely coordinated on this defensive end. I mean, obviously, we had Dash getting a lot done out on his own, but, especially with him in this current lineup being on Maverick, that means he's going to be around, his fellow solo competitors. So it's going to make it a lot easier for the team to try and stay well suited for different situations that we could potentially see Direwolves throw at them.
So this does mean that we have seen a bit of a shift inside of the role department once again. Generally speaking, what I've seen in the past is Jackie Wu as well as ED being the players that are kind of going to be out and about here, but it looks like Pecan is going to be picking up that role this time, judging from the operator picks, specifically with the Alibi coming into play. Expect him to be that front forward player that's trying to stop the initial entries or just the initial entrance into the building here from Team 1, but only having him to fall back on right now. The rest of these guys having very mixed results. That's going to make, again, the early round a huge gamble for Direwolves to play into here, but unfortunately it's border and you're playing upstairs, so to some extent you have to throw that aggression out.
You want to talk about aggression?
Yeah.
Did you look at the Team 1 lineup yet?
Oh, I see these. Yeah, I see these repicks now.
We got Ying, we got Ash of all things as
quick.
well, and we also got Lion, all with Osa as well. So you're going to have some solid info game across the board, but the big thing is that when that execute goes off, oh boy, is it going off. That's going to be a TNT explosion if I have ever seen one.
It's going to be loud. You might want to turn your volume down by like 10% for that execute. Otherwise you might get
Oh,
overwhelmed. But okay.
Peeking. Speaking
Nicely
of peeking.
done with the run out too.
Yeah.
Goes all the way outside for it. Catches again. The Finka as well, so that's a huge piece of utility going to be removed. No more ranged revives. That's an extra set of nades now gone from Team 1. Great pick from Pecan here. A massive shining light. What's been a bit of a dark game so far here for the Direwolves.
It's been the dark ages for the Dire Wolves, but Pecan has been that beacon of hope for them and potentially could keep them inside of this game. Especially on the defensive end, it's a little bit easier to play solo when you are on the defensive side. As well, John, it's your house. You get to do what you want, you set up the building how you want, and everyone else has to try and come in and take it from you. And speaking of taking things, EE1D's out, Lagonis is throwing in as many flashes as he could potentially muster. The trades go back and forth, but Direwolves still on top. Team 1, they don't want to try and pull the trigger just yet. But speaking of pulling the trigger, Jackie Wu will go down. Another swing from Dots, and they are simply clean up shop. Direwolves find themselves at a man disadvantage yet again.
Direwolves can't see anything, let alone respond to it. Their only hope would have been Harambe with the smart glasses play to counter out the Candelas, but he was one of the first to go down here, so not able to bring that to bear. It's all on Pecan now. It needs to return to the site as well as ED. All three of the Toxic Babe charges are gone. Plant is going to land on the ground here. There's no way to stop it. They don't have anywhere near map control to be able to postulate that. And with that said, RHC is going to be able to knock out ED as he tries to rotate back in, leaving only Pecan alone here in a 1v3. He too as well, just no real positioning to play off of here, no surprises to throw out against the Latin American roster. So Team 1 takes yet another round, and already they are on map and match point at a 6-1 scoreline.
Yeah, an amazing opener for Direwolves there with Pecan going for the quick trigger pull over on the east stairs. But past that, it's Team 1 all day as they quickly get to site and just start throwing in smokes, Candelas, slap down the EE1D, and then also play with the timing a little bit there. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Lion took his time outside there on the balcony, and as he starts to creep in, finds that half-wall player, makes the situation so very straightforward for Team 1, as now they have site control, and Direwolves are technically speaking on the offense as that plant goes down. And, I mean, as we saw, Pecan, he's been doing a great job of being able to take gunfights and staying alive, but the person with the second most amount of kills on the team is Souffle, which is technically speaking their top fragger, and he's 3-6 at the moment.
This is what I was talking about again, going back to our pregame discussion, right? Where it's like, okay, what's going to happen when you have the bad day where, okay, you got one player stepping up, but there's no support. There's zero support for this player right now. So Pecan's playing his heart out. Respect to him, right, for the types of plays he's making, but just not enough support behind it. Even positionally speaking, too. He was really just out on an island there. So if he went down, that round would have ended even more quickly.
Yeah, and it's very painful to watch at certain moments as well, because that's kind of what that playstyle does for you. It's a make or break. Either you steamroll the opposition, or they're going to get a couple of picks and make it damn near impossible for you to get anything done. So, you know, here for Direwolves, we'll see if they try and go for the early aggression yet again, as it did work out the last time. Pecan will be using a bit of a different window, a different avenue, if you will, to try and pick up an early frag, but nothing to it here initially, as Team 1 are going to take their time in the opening minute.
So slow play here for the opening bit of action here. ED kind of roam around over towards jail and has attracted quite a bit of attention by doing so. Oh man, this is going to be rough for ED. He's able to fend off the first and second player as well. Number 3 though will finally catch him, as inside of the closet we'll see Dash make his entry through the window, finally able to catch him through the soft walls. Dash though getting low, he might not survive. Looks like he was able to get himself away from it though, as he loses about 2/3 of his health. Thankfully, it stays in play and will be available for another fight. That's Team 1, though. Still at a bit of a deficit, a 3v4, as well as Dash's low HP. No Finka to bring it back up either, as Main was taken down.
All right, Direwolves, oh, that's exactly what I didn't want to see, John. We have the opening minute go their way, and they're still out and about, and they're losing bodies because of it. We need to get back towards site and hold things down. Make it difficult for Team 1 to try and take this round away from you. But instead, they've given over a kill. They practically gifted it to them, but luckily enough, they have a beacon, and he'll get one. Jackie Wu will get another. It's down to Dash on low HP in a 1 versus 3, and Direwolves starting to show signs of life after a beautiful trade in between the remaining players here for both squads. But it'll be gifted to Direwolves as they still have 2 bodies up.
Much better that time from the Direwolves, obviously supporting that aggressive play at the beginning of the round. The player that's doing it, of course, goes off with a massive 2-for-1 trade. And then even from there, you can see there are multiple other players. Dash nearly getting himself knocked out. I think he was able to fall back into that closet a little bit more, get himself outside of the window. That's what saved his life there. But the pressure was constantly there, never giving Team 1 an inch, even though they traded out 1 player for it. They were still down a player. They'd gained 0 map control by making that play, and the rest of Direwolves continued to push the crunch exactly as Team 1 was doing in the previous half. That's what we need to see more of here from the Direwolves if there's going to be a chance for them to come back. That's the problem, though. They need to now win 4 more rounds in a row just to have a hope of getting us through to overtime.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge issue for them. And the other problem is now you're going to have some expectations out of these other players. That was actually Jackie Wu's 2nd kill, but it might have been the most influential of that entire round past what ED was able to accomplish inside of stock there initially with that big 2K. But for Jackie Wu, you really want to see those rotations come through just like we saw in that moment, because that's that death nail you're looking for to end a round. You know, make sure that counter angle isn't there anymore, get it down to that last lone soldier trying to work his way through the map. You guys are able to play your angles and win out the situation pretty handedly. But as you said, John, we got to do that 4 more times.
Yep. We're going to see some repicks this time from Team 1, but fairly minor. The biggest one is Dash moving from the sledge, I believe, over towards a Twitch now. It's giving him a bit more of a personal pick because look at the scoreboard. He's allowed to do whatever he wants right now, in my opinion. So
Don't talk to me.
Yep. I'll just let him do what he wants, guys. Just don't get in his way. Pecan making another run out here. It's the 3rd time in a row I think we've seen that from him. So he tries to make a big play. Unfortunately, not going to find much from it, though. So just falls back and re-braces that win.
Is this not giving you 2019 SI Norango vibes on border, right? Like the amount of runouts that I'm seeing from Valkyrie right now, I feel like I'm going to look over and see Waka's name, but instead I see RHZ's as he takes down Harambe, which just had not the best game as of right now. Currently 2-9-2, does have that OBJ play though, but still, Direwolves, long road ahead of them, and now they're going to be down yet another man.
How will they try to make up for it now? Pecan, oh, I saw that red silhouette sitting on the outside. Team 1, member of their team, nearly able to catch Pecan as he goes for this cross. The drone from Dash probably saw the foot as he moves back out, and Pecan's realized it. Good notice from him there as he hears the drone buzzing by, so quickly takes it out. Knows he would have been spotted, though, because his foot was stuck out to change his position as well. But I believe that got caught, too, when he took out the drone. Dash is well aware of that and knows he's sitting right by the metal stairs. Yeah,
super smart play from him. If he stays over there and kills the drone, he more than likely dies. But since he shifted when he did it, makes it where he can get across that angle and has a lot of other avenues to be able to work his way around the map. And that's more than likely what we'll see out of him momentarily. We're only halfway through the round here that Team 1 could potentially take us off of border in 7-2 fashion. Dash is going to get some damage dealt to him, but nothing too big just yet. It's all been in the Direwolves camp as they've lost Pecan, their best option to try and win a lot of these rounds.
Maya here, just not able to find the breach panel correctly, but Jackie Wu able to move out, and instead he lines up the shot versus Maya. Another play from Dash downstairs, though, and he's able to bring it down to a 4v1. Jackie Wu now left alone here. He's had a rough game so far, but he can be the hero this team needs. He needs to bring it back from a 1v4, however, and it's just not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Team 1 take their first match of the tournament as they knock down the Direwolves in stunning fashion here.
Team 1 with an extremely solid border. I really liked what we saw out of them, especially on the defensive end. I think their defensive strategy was so on points. So extremely excited to see what they have to offer us well, here in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, Team 1 really abusing their early round pressure, I believe, more than anything there on the defensive side. We talked about at the end of the half, just not giving anyone on the Direwolves an inch to move inside of the building, let alone a kill to work with in quite a few avenues here. Still, despite that, didn't fall all in on that aggression. We saw a good variety of it. Some rounds where they realized there was going to be a bit more from the Direwolves, they pull back. They play another room or two further back into the building there, bait them in. Yeah, guys, come on in. It's open.
The water's
Take
fine.
the map control, and then suddenly 3 guys pop out of the corner, and you're down to a 3v5. We saw that happen on at least 2 rounds as well. So Direwolves just couldn't get ahead, it seemed, in that first half, no matter what they tried to do. Some redeeming moments in the second half there, but it was too far gone in my opinion with the scoreline we started out with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, folks, we're going to be going to a little break after Team 1 just took it to Direwolves. They're probably going to need some water, so we'll be back with you guys momentarily.
Attackers have located a bomb.
There are civilians out there who need us. They can't fight back. They can't escape. And they can't heal their own wounds. That's our job. And we're the best at it. By being careful and compassionate, we can make the world a safer place for everyone. We do this to be of service. And we can't afford to be complacent. When we go out there, we work twice as hard to protect others. Whatever we have to do, we put the people first. That will be our focus. With unwavering diligence, we defend. And we get to say that when Wolfguard is on the field, things will be different.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Charlotte Major here, coming at you right after at least our first match, but our third matchup of the day here. Team 1 just went up against the Direwolves, and in case you weren't with us, if you just tuned in, we'll give you a second to mute, but Team 1 took it handily. The 7-2 scoreline there, especially with the start they got on the defensive side. 5-1, they're only allowing that one round to sneak through on a downstairs hold. Immediately kind of patched up the issues after that one. It took a straight 4 to be able to line themselves up there with a massive scoreline there, which unfortunately was just too much for their opponents in the Direwolves to battle back from the second half.
Yeah, I think you can wrap this one up with a pretty neat bow by just saying Team 1 was able to deal with Direwolves' aggression, and they had no answer for any of the strategy that Team 1 had past that. A lot of their early engagements were what you just saw on your screen. You know, Direwolves off on a lone mission and somebody dies and the man advantage just never comes back into their favor. Either that or Team 1 adding more aggression to the pile and being able to take out quite a few members of Direwolves early when they're outside of the building. So I'd say they did a very good job of being able to control this map throughout.
I guess that brings us to a discussion point of, you know, what the issues were for Direwolves. Why weren't they able to contain these players that were sitting on these kind of more aggressive positions or going for the flanks like this? We talked to the mid-game about okay, maybe it's drone presence. Maybe they're just not using their drones enough realistically here and figuring these things out. Maybe it's positioning at the end of the day. You're looking at these replays now. It seems that, honestly, that's a bit more apparent here. A lot of players on Direwolves just kind of doing their own thing, trying to accomplish their own goals without great positional support, no one really nearby them, and just leaving these players out in the open to be taken down constantly by members of Team 1. A lot of issues that Direwolves are going to have to take a quick look at here as they'll get ready for their next match as well. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, it was really hard fought for them, especially just in the frag department. It seemed like they really had nothing going for them, all except for Pekin. And when you have one player doing everything for your team, that never bodes well, especially in Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just such a complicated moment for them, and they really just couldn't get anything over on Team 1. And I think it's more or less what you were saying, but all of the pools at once. Exactly. It's a combination of the things. They don't have the info game for, you know, things like Passport. Why is so many people dying to somebody in Passport? That should never happen on Border. And then also, with that being said, it's also position-based as well, where they're not able to really capitalize on those kind of situations because they're so spread across the entire map, which on a map like Border, you'd expect them to be more tight-knit just given the size of the map overall.
There's a new problem that I'm actually just kind of thinking about too, because this team is like so amorphous with their roles. Is that's like taking up like mental space for them. Is like now they're constantly thinking about like, okay, like who is gonna like pick up.
It's no longer the
slack.
checklist
Yeah,
because you're playing a completely
well,
different
well,
role.
it's not only that, but it's like IGL now has to think like, okay, you like, all right, this guy's gonna pick up Finka next round. Like you're worried about that. It's just another factor that's coming into play now, and it might be taking up like too much of the mental space for this team potentially, if that is something that is happening. Like again, I'm making an assumption here, so I could be completely wrong on this, but it seems like that could be part of the issue too, is that the comms are not clear enough, or that they're too clogged with other things that are just trying to formulate their own game plan. We're not worried about their enemies, which seem to be the true issue inside of that matchup for me.
Yeah, Siege, for the most part, can be overly complicated, but the good thing about it is, like what John's saying, overcomplication it doesn't exactly help you in this game. Keeping it simple, stupid, where you can stay on the same page as your squad is always boded so well time and time again for a multitude of teams, including a lot of teams that have won championships inside of Rainbow Six. So, you know, it's hard to say. I think Dire Wolves need to do a little bit more soul-searching, and the good news is, John, they're at the major. They're at the place with the best teams in the entire world. What a better place to try and figure out yourselves and come back as a better team than here.
Yeah, just a bit of a lackluster game overall from most of the individuals, except for Pecan there, who we called out quite a few times. Jackie Wu really not excelling again on those entries until very late in the game. We saw him able to make a couple of plays there. Edie as well, fairly silent. Same for Souffle, just not really seeing the play come out from them. It was mainly Pecan doing all the heavy lifting there. That's why you saw him getting the kind of more comfortable operator picks towards the end of it there. So once again, just another area where this team needs to kind of brace themselves up a little bit more here for their next matchups. That inconsistency is going to come back to haunt them. It's constantly going to cause issues for them as they try to move further and further into this tournament. If they don't know who they can rely on to fulfill X, Y, or Z objective, they're constantly having to fill that in, play like match the shapes, you know what I'm saying here, then it's going to cause a lot of issues for this team. So hopefully they can brace themselves. As far as Team 1 is concerned, though, they're looking fantastic. So very excited to see how they're going to be able to perform in this next matchup, which is going to be coming up right after this break, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready for it here. It's Team 1 versus Auction coming up next on the A stream here at the Major.